Chapter 13 The New Kingdom of Egypt. The General and the Woman Pharaoh. After the Egyptians learned how to fight from the Hyksos, the new kingdom of Egypt got more and more powerful. This is sometimes called the Golden Age of Egypt, because Egypt was richer than ever before. Pharaoh after Pharaoh came to the throne, ruled well, and kept the new kingdom of Egypt strong. We could never learn about all of these pharaohs, but we are going to read about two of the most interesting pharaohs, Thutmos I and his daughter Hatshepsut. Thutmos I, the general. Before he became pharaoh, Thutmos I was a general in the Egyptian army. Leading the army into wars was what he did best, and he liked to fight. Thutmos helped the Egyptian princes drive the Hyksos out of Egypt. When the leader of the Egyptian princes became king, Thutmos was his right-hand man. Then Thutmos married his daughter, and when the king died, Thutmos became the new pharaoh of Egypt. His rule began around 1524 BC. Thutmos decided that his job as pharaoh was to make Egypt's empire even bigger by conquering other countries. Thutmos' first battles were against the Nubians, who were trying to break away from Egypt. He went down and conquered the Nubian chiefs and reminded them that they were still part of Egypt. But that wasn't enough for Thutmos. Next, he took his army and followed the Hyksos all the way up to Canaan. He defeated the tribes living in the south part of Canaan and made the land part of Egypt. Thutmos was very pleased with himself. The Hyksos had come down and taken over Egypt. Now he had gone up and taken over the land of the Hyksos. The victory made him so happy he wanted to keep on fighting. He turned his army east and started to march. He conquered land all the way to the Euphrates River, but he didn't cross the river because Babylon was ruling between the Tigris and the Euphrates. Thutmos knew better than to start a fight with Babylon. By the time Thutmos died, Egypt was twice as big as it had been. Hatshepsut, the woman who pretended to be a man. Hatshepsut was a princess of Egypt, the daughter of a pharaoh. Her father, Thutmos, was of Egypt's greatest pharaohs, one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs. Thutmos had 3 children, but his favorite was his daughter, Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut listened to her father's stories of battles and conquest. She wanted to grow up to be a pharaoh too, but back in ancient times, most people thought that women were too weak to rule countries. In ancient Egypt, women were allowed to get married and have children. If they didn't want to get married, they could work at the temple serving the gods, or they could become dancers. But those were the only jobs women could have. So when Pharaoh Thutmos died, Hatshepsut's brother became the next pharaoh. Hatshepsut didn't think this was fair. Her brother was sick most of the time, and he didn't pay much attention to his job ruling Egypt. I would be a better pharaoh than my brother, she told herself, but he is a man, and I am a woman. Will I ever get the chance to show what a good ruler I can be? Hatshepsut's brother got sicker and sicker, and one day he died. He had only been pharaoh for 4 years, but he died. But before he died, he told Hatshepsut that he wanted his son to be the next pharaoh, but his son was just a baby. So Hatshepsut said to the Egyptians, I will help my brother's son rule Egypt until he is old enough to be pharaoh on his own. The Egyptian people agreed, and Hatshepsut was finally able to rule Egypt. She wasn't the real pharaoh. Everyone knew that her nephew would soon be old enough to rule. But when that day came, Hatshepsut announced that she would not give up the throne. My father always meant me to be the crown prince, she told her people. He wanted me to become pharaoh rather than my brother. You can't do that, the people in the palace said. Only men can be pharaohs. Hatshepsut answered, but the god Amun-Ra told me that I would rule Egypt. He said, welcome, my sweet daughter, my favorite, the ruler of Upper and Lower Egypt. Hatshepsut, you are the pharaoh. So the gods themselves want me to rule Egypt. But no woman has ever been pharaoh, the people complained. Then pretend I am a man, Hatshepsut said, and she started to wear men's clothing. Whenever she sat on the throne, she even put on a false beard. Hatshepsut was so determined to be pharaoh that the Egyptians finally agreed to have her as their ruler. For over 20 years, Hatshepsut ruled Egypt, a queen pretending to be a king. She didn't fight any wars, but she did lead expeditions into Africa. There she bought gold, incense, monkeys, elephants, and other things that the Egyptian people loved. She built more monuments than any other Egyptian queen. She ruled over the Egyptians until her death. Amenhotep and King Tut. Thutmos I and Hatshepsut were powerful rulers, but we remember two other pharaohs of Egypt for different reasons. The pharaoh Amenhotep tried to change the way that the Egyptians worshipped their gods, and we remember the pharaoh Tutankhamun because the way he was buried. Amenhotep, many gods or one god. Amenhotep's father was Pharaoh, so when he died, Amenhotep inherited his throne. He became Pharaoh around 1350 BC. He was the fourth pharaoh named Amenhotep, so he was known as Amenhotep IV. At first, Amenhotep acted like any other pharaoh. He made laws, he sent the army out to stop rebellions, he married a princess from Nubia and had a daughter. He worshipped all of Egypt's many gods. As a matter of fact, he was named after one of Egypt's most important gods, Amun, a god of the sun who was sometimes called the king of the gods. Amenhotep sacrificed to Amun, gave money to his priests, and held big celebrations to honor this powerful god. But then something happened to Amenhotep. He decided that Amun didn't exist. As a matter of fact, he decided that none of Egypt's gods were real. The Egyptian people were horrified. After all, they were worshipped dozens of gods. They were polytheists. Polytheism means the worship of many gods. The Egyptians thought that the gods controlled every part of life. The gods made the Nile flood. They made rainfall. They made women have babies. They provided food. They decided whether you would live or die. How could this pharaoh suddenly stop worshipping the gods? Amenhotep didn't pay any attention to what his people thought. His mind was made up. Instead of many gods, he believed there was only one god. He called this god Aten. The old gods of Egypt had looked like human beings, but Aten didn't look like a man. He had to be drawn by a symbol. Amenhotep did his best to drive all worship of the old gods, polytheism, out of Egypt. He closed temples and made the priests stop performing rituals. He told people not to sacrifice to the old gods. He even changed his name so that he wouldn't be named after Amun, king of the gods, anymore. Now, instead of Amenhotep, he wanted to be called Akhenaten. This means worshipper of Aten. Amenhotep was the first Egyptian monotheist. Monotheism means worship of only one god. He spent much of his reign worshipping Aten. He built a whole new city with a huge new temple in it for Aten. He wrote poetry to his god. One of his poems say, "Earth brightens when you dawn in light land. When you shine as Aten of daytime, the entire land sets out to work. All beasts browse on their herbs. Herbs are sprouting. Birds fly from their nests. Ships far north, fair south as well. Roads lie open when you rise. The fish in the water dart before you. Your rays are in the midst of the sea." As long as Amenhotep lived, he kept the Egyptians from worshipping all their gods. But as soon as Amenhotep died, the Egyptians rebelled. They closed the temple of Aten. They reopened all other temples. They went back to worshipping all the old gods of Egypt, and they erased Amenhotep's name from all the monuments he had built. They took him out of all their records. They moved out of his city and let it crumble into many ruins. They were so angry at Amenhotep for trying to make them worship just one god that they tried to forget that he had ever been pharaoh. Monotheism in Egypt had failed. Polytheism, the worship of many gods, had won after all. The boy buried with treasure, King Tut. Tut became king of Egypt when he was only 7. He grew up in the house of Amenhotep, the pharaoh who changed his name to Akhenaten. There, Tut was originally named Tutankhaten, a name honoring the god Aten, but when he became king, Tut changed his name to Tutankhamen, a name honoring Amun, the old king of the gods. King Tut helped to wipe out the worship of Aten. He encouraged the people to start worshipping the old gods again. He helped erase Akhenaten's name from all Egyptian records. But King Tut did not have much time to rule. He died when he was 18. Tut wasn't buried in Egypt. You see, robbers knew that the pyramids of Egypt were full of treasure. They broke into the pyramids and robbed them of all their gold and jewels. Sometimes they even dumped the mummies of the pharaohs out onto the floor and stole the golden coffins. So the Egyptians began to hide their tombs in the hills and mountains. They carved caves into the cliffs, put their pharaohs and treasures inside, and then blocked them up, the doors, with stone to hide them. Their favorite place to bury pharaohs was a long, rocky valley, catacombed with caves and passageways. This valley, now called the Valley of the Kings, has 60 tombs in it, and the tombs were well hidden. Robbers never found King Tut's tomb. As a matter of fact, no one knew it was there for thousands and thousands of years. Over 3,000 years later, a man named Howard Carter was working in the Valley of the Kings. He had spent years looking for the tombs of the pharaohs. He found Hatshepsut's tomb. He was convinced that another royal grave was hidden in the Valley of the Kings, but he simply was unable to find it. One day, Howard Carter was moving a stack of stones when he found something unexpected, a step. He ran for help. His men, digging all through the day, uncovered more steps, leading down to a door in the stone. On the door, Carter found a name in hieroglyphs, Tutankhamun. Carefully, Carter cut a hole in the door. He held up a light to the door. At first, all he could see was darkness. He moved his light from side to side. Suddenly, a beautiful golden gleam sprang out from the blackness. The room was full of gold. Carter's friends were pressing in behind him. "What do you see?" one of them asked. "Can you see anything?" "Yes," Howard Carter said. "Wonderful things." The workmen slowly pried the door open. In front of them was a room filled with treasures. King Tut's throne, golden statues of the young king, game boards inlaid with ivory and jewelry, rings, necklaces, jars, jewel-encrusted chests, figures of the gods and goddesses. All of these were crowded into King Tut's tomb. Howard Carter and his friends kept on exploring. They found a whole series of rooms, linked together by hallways. Each room held more treasures. Finally, they came into the last locked door. Carter opened it carefully. Inside, he found the body of the young king, Tutankhamun himself. At first, all Carter saw was a huge golden box. Then he realized that the box opened at the top. Inside the golden box, he found a heavy stone chest. Inside the stone chest, he found a golden statue of the king, lying on its back. As he touched the statue, he knew it was actually a wooden coffin carved to look like the king and then coated with gold. He pried the coffin open, expecting to see Tut's body. Instead, he found another wooden coffin covered with gold, and when he opened this coffin, he found yet another coffin, this one solid gold, through and through. Carefully, he opened this final coffin. There was Tutankhamun's mummified body, wrapped in linen and soaked with spices. It was so well preserved that Howard Carter could even see the dead king's face. Soon, people began to say that there was a curse on Tut's tomb. The man who helped Howard Carter open Tut's tomb, Lord Carnarvon, died only 7 weeks after the burial chamber was first opened. This was the result of the inscription found on the statue of Anubis, the god of death, inside Tut's treasure. The inscription reads, "It is I who hinder the sand from choking the secret chamber. I am for the protection of the deceased." 5 months after Lord Carnarvon's death, his younger brother also died unexpectedly. And that's not all. Howard Carter's pet canary was swallowed by a cobra on the very day that the tomb was first opened. A cobra also carved on Tut's mask, was carved on Tut's mask, so it would spit fire on all enemies of the king. There were 26 people present when the tomb was opened. Within 10 years, 6 had died, but the others lived into old age. So you decide, was there a curse in Tut's tomb?